Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Long Range Addicts podcast. It's Cole Kornberg, your host. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Hopefully you're all doing decent here with COVID crap that's going on. It hasn't really affected us in the firearms industry, but I think it's going to start doing that. And maybe we can kind of hit on that for a second today because Alpha Munitions is joining us. We're excited to talk to them. I was up there the other day and saw some of the new stuff that they're doing, and this is going to be, they got some sweet stuff coming down the pipe, and I'm excited to talk to them about it today. Let's get started.
We love shooting, hunting, and educating. So if you want to learn about long-range shooting, you're in the right place. This is the Long Range Addicts Podcast. Shooter ready, stand by.
As I said, we've got Alpha Munitions today. We're really excited about this. We've got our guest host on today with us, JD. How you doing, JD?
Good. How are you doing, Cole?
Good. Long time no see. You've been busy, I guess, huh?
Yeah. We were busy with the comp and then everything else going on.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that one of these days because I know a lot of people are going to want to know about some of those comps that happen down there and some of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. That'd be good. There's a lot of questions that I always hear, of what happens, how does the military train different in different things. But so JD's a POI reviewer. He just wrote a really good article on the new Bushnell 1700. That'll be on Team POI under reviews. Did a good write up on that. Appreciate that. Let's get into it. We've got Benchmark Barrels. Again, appreciate them sponsoring us. Check out Benchmark Barrels. I know they've got a special going on right now. I saw it on today. If you order, they'll give you $20 off your next barrel, which is pretty sweet. Seems everybody's trying to hold on to their money right now and wondering what's going on. But I think that one would be a great something to invest in. How you guys doing from the Alpha Munitions crew? We've got Andrew, Tom, and Bob. Let's have you guys introduce yourselves because I know a lot of people follow Alpha Munitions. They know the brass quality and everything else, but let's kind of introduce them to the people behind the scenes. Who wants to go first?
I guess I'll go. I'm Bob Danielson. I've met a bunch of people out there. Obviously, we try and stay engaged in the industry and in the precision shooting community. So I talk to a lot of people on the phone and through email and whatnot. I do kind of do everything here with all of us. I mean, we all we're a small company, so we all kind of take a leadership role here. I'll let Tom and Andrew do their introduction, but they're both partners in the company as well.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I'm Tom Danielson, and we laugh and talk about what our positions are at the company, but from janitor to business development, it's all hands on deck. So like Bob said, small team, and everyone puts in and does what they have to do to get the job done, especially now.
Then I'm Andrew Rickson. I do the more of the engineering side of the company, anything from caliber development to figuring out machine problems to mopping the floors. Like Tommy said, we all get involved in a little bit of everything. And that's about it.
That's one cool thing that sets a lot of the smaller people in the industry apart is they're more involved on the customer level with their end user, their customers and everything else. And I think that's one big thing that you guys have kind of tried to do coming out of the gate is be more involved with your customers. I think I met the first time I met Tom and Bob was at Dog Valley, what was it? Probably 3 years ago. When was that?
Actually, I think it was, I know Tom was down there last year. I think it was Richardson and I the first time. God, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. Because Richardson and I drove out there and to check it out, and then God, I'm trying to think if that was like 2016 or or 17. I can't remember, but
I think we've been doing it for 3 years now. Yeah.
I think it was the first year.
Yeah. And then you guys were that's what kind of when you guys started in with the NRL doing that kind of thing and rocking and rolling that way. So I guess let me ask you guys this. Now, we're going to go through this. I've got a bunch of questions from you guys. And within this, I want you guys to kind of pipe up with some of the questions you guys get asked a lot. Now, I know there's different things with chambers and brass and pressure and different things like that. And we can go down a lot of rabbit holes here, so that's fine. And if you're listening and watching, make sure you pipe up and let us know kind of what your questions are, because these guys are behind the scenes. You know, I went in there the other day and they were looking at cups and they were doing different things. And the knowledge base here is big for you guys to understand, you guys and gals to understand what's going on. So again, pipe up if you've got questions. Now you guys all shoot, correct? I was up at the office the other day. You just got done shooting Mammoth, right, Bob?
In January. Yeah.
Yep. Does Andrew and Tom, do you guys shoot a lot?
Don't shoot as much as I'd like to, that's for sure. But I think it was, I shot Gap Grind, and then I shot the Utah Dog Valley match last year as well. And I was hoping to be able to shoot it this year too.
Yeah, most of my shooting is over a magneto speed, testing lots of brass. So it's still enjoyable, but not the shooting we normally do.
We all love it, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. But it's one of those things: make your hobby your career, and watch your hobby go away to some degree. But yeah, I mean, the goal is that all of us are going to be shooting more matches this year, and hopefully more the following year too.
Yeah, if we can get to any matches, right?
Yeah, I guess.
I was talking to my guys about that to my assistant match directors today. I'm like, shit, should we start talking about refunding, payments and different things, or what the hell are we going to start doing? Because it who knows when it's going to stop, and then who knows when the rebound's going to go. But I guess that's something we're going to have to find in the next few weeks. But I mean, you guys are still, with all the COVID stuff going on, you guys are still rocking and rolling, producing brass, kicking shit out the door, right?
Yeah, it's we're not stopping. And I have an idea for the matches. We could just do like a 6-foot distance rule. We could all wear N95 masks.
We could go back to military days and wear freaking mop gear and freaking.
There we go.
Shit.
Yeah. Maybe we'd have a chance.
Yeah, I could go shoot like shit, so it wouldn't matter either way for me. It doesn't matter. I don't know. Yeah, but that's good. I mean, I was up there the other day. You guys have a lot of stuff on the shelf. You're creating new stuff, which I know we want to dig into a little bit deeper here. But for somebody listening, let's answer this question real quick. What do you guys have available that can ship right now?
So right now, gosh, I have to walk back the shelf after today, to be honest with you. But I know the Dasher's off the shelf right now, but we've got some here. It's going through final QC, so we'll have a bunch of that going. I know we have plenty of 6.5 Creedmoor because we just ran that. I know that we have 6 Creedmoor small and 6 large. Yeah, we have 308 now. We've got some 260 and large. I have to look at 6XC. I know we have some 6XC back there, but our shelves are about to get replenished again. So we think. I mean, that's been one of our goals this year. It's our goal every year, but we're increasing production. We're actually doubling production again this year, and Andrew can go into some of that. But it's to have more of the products that we offer on the shelf and ready for people this year, so more readily available.
And one of the things we'll talk about later in the podcast is what we're doing to get product produced and on the shelves faster. So it's a laborious process right now, but it's about to get a whole lot easier. So we'll discuss that a little bit later.
Yeah, that's kind of exciting to me to see some of the stuff you guys are coming up with, because being in the industry as long as I have, a lot of people are still doing it the old-fashioned way, and some of the things you guys have started to do is kind of, it's going to add a lot of light to a lot of different things, and I'm excited, and that's kind of why I wanted to bring you guys on so fast, because I'm like, crap, these guys are going down the right path. But let me have a question out real quick, and a lot of our listeners might not know. you guys make a 6 Creed small rifle and a large rifle. You make a 22 Creed, vice versa. What is the difference between large rifle and a small rifle? What does that mean to the end user if they go ahead and try and order that from Alpha?
So I'll let Tom answer that, and then Andrew, if you want to get beat this thing to death and all the data, he can follow up.
Well, I think I'm gonna let Andrew handle this, and if anybody wants to look, we did a study that Andrew put together with our CSO Jim Cobber, and some really great data comparing large and small rifle primer. But we'll let Andrew fill you in on that.
So, not to go into the depths of this too far, but when we originally looked at the small primer, large primer, we went back to kind of where did it start? And it started with the US Palma team and Lapua looking at it, and they were looking at doing the 308 and SRP, and everyone came out and they're like, oh, this is better than that. It's more accurate. It adds to consistency. And so we said, hey, let's take a look at it. Let's actually bring some science to it and see what data we get from it. So we went forward with it and we started designing the 308 SRP. And what we found was that the consistency of velocities don't really change between large primer, small primer. And I think the idea that small primer was more consistent was due to the fact that the only companies out there offering 308 in small primer was Lapua. So the only way to really compare Lapua or small primer to large primer was to buy Lapua small primer versus any other piece of brass. And I mean, it's not really a fair comparison. So what we were able to do, we literally made like for like brass and small primer and large primer. And we tested it in cold conditions, hot conditions, what you consider standard conditions. And we looked at long shooting strings. We looked at different powder types. We really went through all different variations and found that the effect on the average velocity and the standard deviations for those velocities and the extreme spread was nothing. There was no difference. You did have, depending on caliber, not just 308, but we tested this in 6.5. We tested this and we looked extensively, especially when we started going to the dashers and the smaller cases. Oh, sorry, that's flash hole stuff. But we looked at it. They did change. We did see differences in the average velocity for the same powder charges just due to primer types. But when it came to the consistency, we didn't see any difference in consistency. So that's why we ended up just, we went with a small primer. Now, the one thing I can say with a small primer is that we have found is that you tend to get a little bit better brass life when you're really pushing that upper edge of velocities and pressures. We have found that you can hold those a little better just because there's more material there. And the primer pocket life is usually pretty good with those as well. But when it comes to consistency and accuracy, we did not find any difference.
All right. Well, I just learned something. There I go. So when you call an order, and we've ordered a lot of what do I have on order right now? I think it's 6 Creed, small or large. So what you're kind of telling me is if I order it, it's still on the shooter, of course, to be more consistent and your loads and everything else. But I think what you guys are kind of saying is you're going to be happy either way, right? No matter what you choose.
Yeah, as long as you have good loading practices. The difference between large and small primer is how many primers do you have on the shelf and which ones do you have? If you have a big storage of, CCI 450s, then go with a small primer and keep using what you use. But if you're shooting 308 large, 6.5 large, you just want to keep more large primers on the shelf, and you don't have to go out and buy 2 different types of primers, and just keep the large and keep shooting the large. We have actually one of our team shooters, Mike Keenan. He was shooting 6XC, and he was like, I should go to the small primer, and he tested it, and he's like, I'm just going to keep the large because it just shot as good, and he had more large primers, so he stayed with the large, and it's still shooting great for him.
It's durability, right? I think Andrew knows that. We've done the testing. We joke internally that when guys call up and ask us, hey, should I go with large or small rifle primer brass? The first question is always, so what firing pin are you running, large or small? And then it's, do you want to will the brass down to your family, like to your grandkids? And that's really the only thing we've seen is the durability of the primer pockets.
All right. We've got a question from Josh. Is the flash hole the same size on Alpha's brass between SRP and LRP?
Richon?
Yeah. So yes, it is the same. We run a 80 thou flash hole for both the large and small, and we're looking for some new calibers that we're coming out with. We're going to be testing here some more tooling for that to look at the differences. But we did an extensive test between flash hole size just with the small primer, large primer, and one of the old problems with small primer brass, especially those guys that used to shoot like 6.547, is that in cold conditions they wouldn't get good ignition. And so if guys were, out in the Wyoming or Montana, or Idaho shooting coyotes or whatever it is in the winter, they would have bad ignition potentially. And so we did a test where we looked at the flash hole size in cold conditions for not only just ignition but also velocity consistencies. And we found that keeping the large flash hole in the 308 base cases, this isn't true. We didn't test this in PPC. This is strictly talking 308 base cases. That the large flash hole with the small primer combination produced more consistent velocities in standard deviation and lower in standard deviation and lower ESs in cold conditions. Within regular conditions, standard conditions, we found that there was almost no difference in the flash hole size when it comes to velocity consistency. So we did do quite a bit of testing on it, and we found that because there was no major differences, we elected to go with the large flash hole because it allowed us in those colder conditions to have better SDs.
Okay, yeah. So I guess this is always a question, and of course this is subject to how you load your ammo. If you're gonna load it frickin' balls to the wall, frickin' hotter than Hades, and depending on whether you're gonna anneal it, what do you guys usually see out of a cartridge like 6 Creed or 6.5 Creed? What is the average brass life for that? Because most of the hunters, they're never going to get to a major brass life, but the PRS shooters and those type, they reload depending on if they anneal, how they reload. What do you guys say is a brass life?
I think any of us are probably hesitant to answer this. I mean, it really depends on how you're loading. It depends on what your expectations are for 6 Creed. I mean, it's if you're pushing towards the upper limits, that's really not where it's at. I know that, 10 firings is not uncommon. 10 plus firings, even significantly more than that, is not uncommon with some of our large rifle primer stuff. There's been a handful of people that have somehow managed to take our small rifle primer, which we're notorious for having tight primer pockets, especially on the first loading. When a guy calls us up and says, and we're not immune from mistakes, but I feel like we make very few of them. But we've had people where they open up our small rifle primer pockets after 4, 5, 6 firings. And I'm talking about, this is a handful of people. So the truth is, I don't know. The way that we load and the way that probably you would load, Cole, I would think the 10 firings is pretty much a layup. But the moment when we think we can't be amazed anymore, we get hit with one from the side.
Yeah, and that was one funny thing that we did at Barnes was we had these giant bins of brass, right? And we just fill them up. We'd even take, if we'd go out and test fire an AR or something, we'd throw all the brass in the bin when we were done. Some of those, I bet, were between 15 and 20 firings. And I don't know how the hell we did it, because we always ran hard. We ran stuff hard, but a lot of that also depends on annealing and different things like that. Now, your guys, I've seen the process of how you guys go through annealing and the steps that you guys take, which is freaking phenomenal. So when you get to brass, what do you guys recommend as a good annealing process for when you go through and anneal your brass?
I'll let Rich handle that one.
That is an in-depth question. There's so many different methods out there. It's kind of hard to say. And I've talked extensively with customers on the phone about this. We get questions like, how do you anneal your brass? What do you do? I use Templac. I don't use Templac. You could do an entire podcast probably about annealing. What we recommend, generally speaking, if you have good annealing technique, if you're a bench rest shooter, anneal every time. It's just for consistency purposes. It may not give you the best SDs, and we're doing a study on this, but it gives you the best consistency for your brass. And then, excuse me, if you're shooting what I consider like, the PRS style tactical competitions, you don't need to, everyone wants to put every bullet on top of each other, but, realistically, most shooters can't. They don't have the ability to do it. Neither do I. But every other firing, every 3 firings is typically just fine. For the home, the guy who goes out and shoots every now and again, we've run our brass not annealing 10 times. And it's, that's when you start getting past 3 or 4 firings, then you're going to start getting to the point where your accuracy is probably going to diminish. But for general purposes, every 3 firings for your average shooter, I would say, is pretty normal. Now, when you talk about annealing techniques and how to anneal, that gets a little dark art sciencey. There's a lot of different annealing methods out there, and I think one of the major problems is people don't understand really the temperatures required and like material properties and all the fun stuff of when they anneal. It has to hit critical temperatures and how long it has to be there, which isn't too long. If you hit 800 degrees and higher, you should be fine. But people get like the Templac, and they put Templac on the outside of it, so you're burning that Templac, and you're not really actually heating the inner core of the brass to those temperatures. And that's what you got to make sure when you're annealing, is that you're getting the full material thickness to temperature. And so maybe your Templac on the outside burns off. I haven't messed too much with flame annealing, in all honesty. We use induction annealing throughout our process. And then we also have the nifty little amp annealer, which is fantastic, produces great results. But from what I've seen is sometimes guys put Templac, or guys and gals put Templac on the inside of the case too, which can show the heat because if it's not getting direct flame contact. But I'm not the biggest believer in the consistency of Templac. I don't think it's always going to give you good results. The best way to do it, honestly, is to get a hardness tester and get it tested. But not everyone can afford one of those, so I understand that challenge. But
so what you're saying is, don't make your brass look like you just roasted a hot dog, right?
Yeah. Don't blacken it up that much. But in all honesty, you can heat brass up pretty hot, and you're not going to over damage it too much. I don't think you got to start really getting over. I think it's like 1250 degrees to really start messing it up. But I don't think you shouldn't have any issues with your standard propane torch. But yeah, don't cook it that bad.
Yeah, because I haven't quite updated to the old amp yet. I've got a freaking I gotta get. I don't know if I need to take that step yet. I got to become a better shooter before I start spending any more money on that crap. I got to actually go out and shoot the guns that I'm building, like the GT that I just started. Me and Bob were talking about that earlier today. That one's going to be a good one. I
use virgin brass every time. We're fine with that.
A guy, right? I've seen them freaking giant barrels of brass.
Perfect neck tension. You don't have to worry about it. Leave it on the ground.
Yeah, you don't have to bump your necks every. Yeah, that'll be nice. Hell, that's how I was with Blackout for a while. Everybody would follow me around like I had candy. Everybody wanted Blackout. That's why I built like 4 of them, because I had so much freaking Blackout ammo. Do you have a question, JD?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions. It's kind of going back to some equipment you guys use, and then Lapua. So I'll start out with the equipment. Obviously, everyone listening and guys want to replicate what, I guess, companies do to make accurate loads and make everything consistent. So when it comes to loading your ammo, especially when you're looking at small primer versus large primer and all that testing, what do you use to load? Is there a special press you guys have settled on, or is it just kind of, Bob has his favorite press and he goes with that because it's shown consistency?
Tommy does a lot of the loading and testing, so he can
we really like the Forester presses. Not to say that the other presses aren't great as well, but that's what we use in the shop. The most important thing is obviously just consistency in your loading. So we we focus a lot on neck tension. So we're big believers in running a mandrel through the case neck. We've seen that'll help produce some of the most consistent results you can get. So that's important. And then, dies are equally important. So, you're good with any of the top tier producers. Obviously we use a lot of Forester dies as well. Redding makes a great product. There's a lot of other great products out there, but, we always say that the most important thing is just you're consistent in the way that you reload.
Okay. Yeah, I don't reload. I just shoot factory ammo. As Cole has kind of looked at me weird for that, or maybe begrudgingly. I'm slowly getting together all my stuff for it. But looking kind of at stuff like the military does, everyone, even the civilian world, everyone looks at Lapua as the benchmark, the standard. So with Alpha coming in, we've heard a lot of really good things about it. We have a couple guys on the committee who are reloading Alpha Brass. Bob, I think you shot against them. Dan and Neil, they were at Mammoth with you.
Yeah.
But what are you guys kind of pushing that maybe Lapua is looking at looking at differently? How are you kind of not really stepping in to overthrow them, but what are you doing differently that you think is a little bit better than kind of what they're doing?
So on the technical side, I'll let Andrew and Tom talk about that, but I want to be like super clear here. Yeah, I mean we shoot, used to at least. We're trying to get back into it again. And Lapua, absolutely gold standard. I mean that's how it's been for years. Our motivation for starting this company was a couple things. Number one, I mean, we wanted to do something that we love, wanted to do something we believed in. We wanted to do something that we thought that could change the industry in a positive way and really drive innovation. And with that, we really looked towards Lapua and said, listen, that's really who we have to at least be mentioned with, and hopefully overtake. And part of it is real simple. It's we want to do it here in our country. We want to do it in the United States. I mean, that means more to us than, I mean, you guys, I'm sure understand it, but I mean, it sounds cheesy, but we want to do it here. It's important to us. And we talk about it internally all the time. As far as the consistency, I mean, we feel, and I'll let Andrew go into our equipment and how we do it in a moment, but one piece of brass that comes off our line is, as we run these, is the same as the next. And it's literally because we run slower and it's single point tooling. We can do it, and Andrew can kind of go into the process if he doesn't mind and walk you through it as quickly as we can. But to see what we do, and Cole's seen it, and we walk people through it periodically, instead of having 10 different tooling heads or 20 different tooling heads, bunk making 20 different pieces of brass with one movement. We're doing one at a time.
Okay.
And I'll let Andrew go into the whole thing just because he can answer your question the best. But yeah, I mean, we hold Lapua in a very high regard. I want to be very clear about that.
And just real quick to answer what we're doing different. What we're trying to do is be very in tune with what the community is asking. So, for example, we released 2 cartridges that they're not SAMI or SIP spec, the 6 GT and the 6 Dasher. And, shooters in the PRS, bench rest F class have been asking for factory support in the Dasher for years. And, it's fallen on deaf ears, and it's extremely difficult case to make. And we understand that. We're willing to take those projects on and get these shooters what they need and what they want. If someone wants an order from us and they have some very special requirements for it, and they want to change something dimensionally on it. And when I say dimensionally, I'm meaning where you want your base to shoulder dimensions or things like that. We can make those very simply. Our machines are so advanced that we can do that type of specialty stuff. So, just trying to be really, really focused to what our customers need, whether it be military or civilian, and move at a faster pace.
Okay.
So to summarize the manufacturing process as quickly as I can, so we go through what you call most companies call them draw processes, but they're technically actually ironing. The draw process is where you take a flat plate and you make a cup. So it stamps the cup out of the plate, and so we buy that and we spec that out. So especially for our newest calibers, the Dasher and the GT, those cups are very unique. They're completely custom. I designed them, I worked on them, and I figured out, okay, this is the dimensions we need. This is what we start with. This is the raw material specs. And then we go through these ironing processes where it's a punch. The easiest way to explain it is, you remember as a kid, you had a Play-Doh set and you had stars and squares and you pushed it through and it made that shape. We do that with a lot more tonnage. That's it. And now it's the alignment procedures.
Jesus, Rickson, what are you telling people?
Yeah.
Play-Doh and start.
It's the easiest way to explain it. It's, push Play-Doh through a hole. But
Rickson has a college education, a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, they think it's just I tell them it's hard, but it's really fucking easy. Ooh, shit. But sorry, I can't swear on a podcast.
Just G-rated.
Yeah. But anyway, but what makes us different, especially in this ironing process, is that there's a lot of fine things and small things that we've taken from other industries and we've adapted for here. There's the one thing that we've realized in the shooting industry is that most people in it this is the way my boss did it, and this company's done it for the last 50 years and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, we're like, let's take a look at this and let's change it. Why don't we just try something new? We're not here to say, hey, this is the way it's always been. It's, hey, how do we improve this? Oh, and we improved it once. How do we improve it again? Let's try this thing. And that's the one thing that I think our company really does, is we're willing to spend the money to screw something up in a chance that it might make it better. And fortunately, we've been able to make quite a lot of things better. And so through the ironing process to take that cup and to make it into a brass tube that we can actually form and work with, that's like the real art. I'll be honest. That's where you make that brass tube perfect, and where you can really set up to make the final case perfect. And I can't go into the details on how we do it, but we've changed and spent quite a bit of money to really do it well. Then it goes through what you call a coining operation. The coining operation is what stamps the head of the case. So a lot of times people hear like Norma double stamps their brass, or so-and-so double stamps their brass. So that means that you hit it once, you hit the case head once with a forming tool, and then you come back and you hit it again with your buncher tool, and your buncher is what is the shape of the primer pocket and has your lettering on it and all that jazz. And that forms that primer pocket and creates that case head hardness. So going back to small primer, large primer, and brass longevity, you need to hit certain hardness values. And so you create that hardness gradient through the brass and through that case, through the ironing process and through the case head by doing the pocketing and heading operation, or the coining operation. After that, you go through a lathe that cuts the extractor groove. So we cut that, and then we go into a taper process. So we then can taper the case, and that's where it goes from looking like an old school 4570 down to an actual rifle case. And then through that, then we go through our flash hole and trim stage. And I think one of the greatest challenges we had was creating a good flash hole. The one thing that we've worked to achieve from day one is that minimum work by our customers to it. We don't want people having to deburr flash holes and size this and trim these all to the same length. We want to be able to supply you all with brass where it's like, oh, this is all, all within 2 thou tolerance overall length. Oh, that flash hole is perfectly clean. And so we took a long time. I think that one I wanted to blow the machine up a couple times before we got it fixed, but it took a while, but now we've got it down pretty well. And then we go through a final anneal process where after cold working that brass, forming that neck and mouth and shoulder, we then anneal it one last time, and we got a finished piece of brass. But
okay. And one of the other keys is, we looked at equipment all over the world, and we came out of, the chemical industry, pharmaceutical industry, medical device industry, oil. And, we looked at how the manufacturing process was done historically with rifle brass. So what we said is let's look at the most advanced ways people are doing manufacturing today, and we incorporated all that with statistic process control. So we're testing every 200 pieces that come out of the machine. We're quality controlling every 200 parts. So if we see variations, we're going to catch it within 200 parts. The older equipment, the old cam-driven equipment, which we do not use, ours is all electro servo operated. Those run so fast that by the time you catch a mistake, you produced an enormous amount of product, and then you eventually are what they do actually do is go through it by hand and pull and call the bad pieces. So, Andrew actually wrote our statistic process control software, and we're constantly gauging, our operators are constantly gauging parts from every single machine throughout the day. And the goal is to make sure that the product is as consistent as it can possibly be.
Okay. No, that's great. This is a jab to you, Andy. I'll just say Play-Doh. If everyone wants an explanation back to work.
Yeah. We'll send you some Play-Doh.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
What's your favorite color?
Green, obviously.
There you go.
Yeah, and we use a little bit different wording here on the podcast. It's more gooder, if anybody needs to know it. There's not better, it's just more gooder. That's how it goes. We've got a couple questions over there, and I'll come back to them. So keep listening. The difference that I've seen, being in this industry as long as I have with the QC processes, and it's kind of like he said, it's amazing how many people will test at the start of a shift and then let their machines run the entire freaking day and then test at the end of the shift. Now, in between there's an issue, and where did the issue start and where did it stop or whatever. And that to me is a huge asset that you guys have, that you're only going 200 parts, because that also saves you a lot of money if you don't have to scrap all that freaking brass too. So that's a pretty freaking big deal in my book, coming from the places that I've been. Barnes was one of those that always tested this shit out of stuff, and it got so repetitive and so overdone that it just became a pain in the ass. But at the end of the day, there's a lot less QC issues that were there. And I know you guys have taken machines and pimped the ever living shit out of them, because I saw the machines before, and Bob threatened my life if I ever took a picture of one of them. I got in there and I pulled out my camera. I'm like, I'm going to put this shit on freaking Facebook. Negative, Ghost Rider. That shit is not going to happen. He about freaking slapped the shit out of me when I pulled it out. That was one of those. That was one of the first days me and you really hung out, Bob.
Yeah, no, we're a little guarded, but it's only because Richard really understands this stuff, and we know what it cost to do it and the time it took. So,
yeah. So Lapua, if you're answering, Rixon's for sale.
He's not cheap.
No, but that's good. I mean, you guys have a pretty good dynamic going. And, when we went through our questions, I'll change it up a little bit, then we'll come back. But so my company, Team POI, we came in, which JD's part of, and, we went to Alpha, and there's a lot of differences going in nowadays with marketing and different things. And Alpha kind of came in and stepped up and said, hey, we want to do this. I kind of went to him with an idea of how we were going to do stuff. And if you haven't seen the short bus, you're missing out. But that was one of those things that kind of really solidified our role with Alpha, and everything we've been doing. But I guess maybe in my mind, and I've never asked this, but what has really helped Alpha even becoming teamed up with us, I guess? I mean, what are you guys getting from it that is great, that might, help you guys out?
I mean, honestly, when we talked, you're pushing the boundaries. And I mean, you have something that you're hitting from a different angle. And really, I mean, a lot of your focus, it seemed like, was on frankly, there's a lot of guys who are professional shooters or whatever you want to call them. And really a lot of what you were talking about is like, let's get to the guys who are just learning. Let's get to the guys who are even like the 1-day matches, which you get a lot of experienced guys running, but at the same time, you get a lot of new guys that step into that water. I mean, it's an opportunity to get in front of people that it's very hard for us to get in front of just because we're here. We can't get out to the matches. Not only that, it seemed like a hell of a lot of fun, to be perfectly honest and selfish about the whole thing. When you talked about a bus that we could go shoot some hogs or something off of, I mean, that might just be part of it too. I'm not quite sure, but
yeah, for me, it was a short bus. That solidified it. I love that thing.
Everybody, I keep getting messages like, dude, I thought you were freaking on crack when you started this. Like, who the hell goes and buys a short bus? Then they see the end product, and nobody's actually ever seen the 100% complete. I just barely got it back today. No one's seen the complete thing inside and out. So it's going to be interesting to see. But coming back to your point, there's a lot of new people. Precision long range is one, and I might be telling some of my secrets here. I don't know. And they might not be secret. Somebody just hasn't worked on it. But there's a lot of new people coming into the PRS game. And I think there's a certain point to where you need to start hitting these people. I went to a match a couple weeks ago, and there was some ladies there, and they were shooting an old bolt gun, a new 700 bolt gun. They were single feeding, pink camo, just out there having a good time. And to me, those are the kind of people that you want to walk up and you want to say, hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm with this company. I love what you're doing. Thanks for coming out. I think that, in my mind, is one of the biggest selling points a company can do, is getting out there, talking to people and interacting. And that's one big thing you guys have done, shooting matches and stuff. But as I know, and as you guys know, it's almost impossible to freaking go out there and do all this stuff because you still got to run a business. And that's kind of where I did this. I'm like, let's take some shooters. Let's take some of these people and let's go out there and make some friends and do that. And that's one of the biggest things I miss from starting POI and doing everything else, was I got so far away from that and so disconnected with a lot of those people. Now I've got to try and reconnect with them. And I think that's one good thing that's going to come out of this. And I can't wait to show people, the brass and the quality and everything else. But I know we kind of wanted to hit on that. Now, next going forward is you guys have kind of hit on it, and we've had a couple questions. One was up here: what separates your brass from Lapua and Peterson? And we kind of went into that with the innovation that's going on now. A lot of people don't know what SAMI is. SAMI is a standard. SAMI is a testing thing. And you've had to have been, one of the great big companies as of recently to be able to even put into SAMI and different things. Now, what are you guys doing that's going to kind of push the smaller guys to get into this? Because I know we can't really talk about it, but you guys have some new offerings coming out too, right?
Yeah, we're working on hopefully launching 2 to 3 new calibers this year that historically are Wildcats, but we're planning to support with factory brass for the first time. So yeah, we're really excited about that. It was kind of moving down the dasher line.
Yeah, I mean it's the fun part and the painstaking part of doing, I think, what we're doing is as Andrew kind of alluded to earlier, like, we're willing to take risks. And when I say risks, I mean not with safety issues, but I mean the dasher, or GT is not the best example because we kind of controlled the release of that as far as reamers and dies and whatnot that go. But 22 Creedmoor was kind of our first thing that we did, which was, everybody's necking down 6 Creedmoor to see how fast they can get a 22 cal bullet to go, right? When you do that stuff, you get some flack, and you're kind of going into uncharted territories with different specifications, because there are really no specifications. I guess that's not the word, but reamers and dies and so on and so forth. And so we're trying within reason to kind of push the limits of what we can do with the people in the community that want it. Dasher, I mean, Tom hit it on it earlier. Most companies wouldn't go down that road. There's so many Tommy knows better than anybody. There were so many different reamer specs when he called up some of the reamer companies. They're like, there's hundreds. Which one do you want? So how do we hit that one? We do our best to hit the biggest part of the market. But then, we've got to deal with the questions and the phone calls and on a very small scale, relatively speaking, to the hundreds of thousands of pieces we have out there right now, the guys who are struggling with it. So that's one of the things that I feel like we're really doing differently. And we're instead of just kind of going with the flow, driving the market, hopefully a bit, to give people something different, something new, and find what works.
Yeah, and there's a lot of issues that go in with the bigger companies too, and they're just really, really good at hiding it, I think, a lot of the time. And I might get crucified for saying that later, but it's amazing the issues that do come out. And there's a lot of issues now that I know that are coming out for cartridges that have been there for a minute, and now everybody's starting to see the issues with them because of you've got 10 different reamer manufacturers, you've got all these different manufacturers, and you're trying to put different things together and try to get the best thing out of it. Now, I wanted to bring that up with you guys because you guys have kind of come up with a solution for that. Without taking everybody's shit together and then trying to push it out, what solution do you guys have that you're going to start releasing? They're quiet. They're not.
We can.
Bob, you need to take it off mute.
I said that was from the side, Cole, but we'll answer it. For you.
Yeah. So, one thing we've become very good at is working with carbide and working with manufacturers to come up with new techniques to hit insane tolerances, and that's what we like to do. So we've been playing with some reamers, and we're going to be testing them soon. And I'll let Andrew go over the what we think we can hit dimensionally on them. Not what we think we can hit, what we know we can hit.
So yeah, to the reamers. One thing that we realized, but I guess a bit of back history of why we're deciding to do reamers. What Cole alluded to and what Cole's talking about is that, when you do these calibers, there's all these different reamers out there. Joe Schmo goes out and says, "Oh, I want to make this a tight neck reamer." And then Joe Schmo's gunsmith has it, and then he cuts up 10 barrels with it, and no one really knows sometimes. So what we wanted to do is we want to be able to help control the calibers, especially these wildcats like Dashers, like the Dasher and the Dasher family of cartridges, the BR family. And so what we can do with these reamers is, one, we can control these dimensions to make sure the key critical dimensions for our brass stay consistent. So you're looking at like the base diameter at 0.2 off the bolt face. You're looking at like the release area for the neck and a couple of the angles and all that. We can control these. We can control the free bore, all of it. And we can control them on the tooling and on the machinery to make these reamers down to, we can hit pretty well two microns. We can go up to about, all our reamers should be, key critical dimensions should be within 4 to 5 microns. And so
what is a micron?
A micron is, I think, 4 microns is like 1.5 thou. No, I'm sorry, 1.5 tenths. 1.5 tenths. Or is that 2 microns? Sorry, let me just do a quick.
Either way, it's freaking tight as hell.
Yeah.
The goal is to have a reamer which will be serialized that you can order this year, and 3 years from now you can order another reamer, and it's going to be within 4 microns on every key critical dimension. It's unheard of right now.
And on top of that, A human hair is 3,000, so we're not even, and you're
How many
talking a
microns?
tenth. I don't know. I don't want to do the math. It's 8 o'clock at night. It's 4 microns is 1.5 tenths, and 10,000ths of an inch is a tenth for the non-machinists. But the cool thing, as Tom was talking about, is that each reamer is going to be serialized. So not only do we know the chamber print that it's supposed to make, we will know the exact dimensions of that reamer for the critical dimensions we're going to measure. We're not going to measure every single thing, but we will measure the critical dimensions to make sure that we know exactly what your reamer is. So if one of the gunsmiths that bought our reamers calls up and says, hey, I have this reamer print and we want to see this one, like if it's worn out, I want to order another one, I can pull up his serialized measurements, his QC sheet, and say, okay, this one's going to have, it's a micron larger in the neck diameter, or it's a micron smaller. I mean, it's nothing. But we can supply that to the end shooter. So those shooters who want those super consistent results are going to get that. And we think that's huge, because there's no more of this hand lapping reamers. This goes in the machine and it comes out finished. That's how good this is. And the one, I don't think it's a downside of it, but they're not sharp. You can't sharpen it. That's the one thing. Once it's done, it's done. Get rid of it. We'll get you another one, which is identical, and you can go start cutting chambers again. And so we think it's going to be a great product for the community, especially for those in the precision shooting world that demand consistency.
You mean you can't take a reamer and chamber 10,000 freaking barrels with it and expect it to be the same?
No.
Damn it.
Yeah, and we're still in the R&D stage on this. We're close to getting reamers and actually getting them out to be tested within the community. So I think we're weeks away from that happening. But we're still very much in the R&D stage on this. But we're incredibly excited with what we've seen so far and what we know we're capable of doing. So we think it's going to be a really cool offering once we can get them available.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to the same point of the time that you guys are putting in to try and control this. I keep seeing a lot in forums, I had this type of brass and it's garbage because it hit really high pressure and blah, blah, blah. It's all right. All right, who's Tom, Dick, and Harry DeWalt did you use to chamber such, this barrel? And now, going back through the steps of understanding barrels, pressures, cartridges, everything else, is it really the brass? That's the biggest question. And it is hard because a lot of these, as you guys say, aren't SAMI spec, which we can go down that road another day of what SAMI is. But understanding when you go load your own freaking ammo, understanding what to look for and the signs of it. Are you seeing overpressure because of the case? Or are you seeing overpressure because of, they freaking reamed it with a shit reamer or different things like that? And I think these steps that you guys are putting in is definitely going to help with that. I see that a lot. It's all over in forums, groups, different things like that. And that's a huge step forward. Now, I know you guys have kind of released some teasers about some other stuff that you're going down, and we don't need to talk too much about it. But you guys are really going in depth in understanding how to measure each piece of brass as it goes out to somebody. Now, you'll get some brass that, is a little bit different color, different things like that. You guys are going through a whole different process of how to make that brass. When you order 100 pieces of brass, you're getting almost exactly the same piece of brass every time. And you guys are going through that with some of the steps. And like I said, if you guys watch their social media, you'll kind of see some of the stuff they're doing. But do you guys kind of want to go in a little bit more in depth on why you guys are trying to get it so consistent?
Well, one of the biggest bottlenecks we have, and one of the reasons why, we can't really keep up with demand right now, is because we're hand inspecting every single piece of brass, and it's being hand inspected 3 times. So we're doing, if it's got a spot on it, it doesn't go out the door. So what we've realized is that's where our bottleneck is, and we've got to get a piece of automation that solves that issue. So we looked and went out and looked at all the machines that the current firearms manufacturers and brass manufacturers are using. And we looked at what tolerances those machines could hold. And based on the tolerances we hold on our tooling and we expect out of our product, it just didn't meet the tolerances. So we did something kind of crazy. And I think about 2 years ago, we said we're going to design and build in-house our own inspection machine. And so that machine is, and Andrew can speak to it more, but the goal of that machine is to inspect every single piece of Alpha brass, all the key dimensions. Again, we love microns, but what is it, Andrew? Plus or minus 2 microns?
Yeah, in the right conditions, the cannulated light can measure plus minus 2 microns.
So, there's going to be a whole bunch of other stations on it, and what it's going to allow us to do is obviously ensure that the brass is the most consistent brass in the world, and that we can get it to market much faster. So this machine is going to keep up with our production line, and that's huge. I think we're probably going to have it powered up and running hopefully next week. And the program's got to be written from scratch. Everything's got to be done from scratch, so it's got to be shaken down. But I don't know how long it's going to be. Another month.
Rich will have it running next week.
Yeah,
there'll be lights on it next week. I know that.
Yeah, it'll be flashing lights, and
the lights are pretty cool, actually.
If I don't mess up the electrics.
Sounds like Andrew should probably be at work and not on the podcast at this point.
We did just get all the wire in, 500 foot of it. So,
yeah. So again, it's something that's it's never been done in our industry, and we've had a lot of people ask us why, and the answer is because we worked with vendors over 2 years to develop the capability for this machine to do this. So we handed some of the vendors that we used a very difficult task and said this has to do this, and they worked really, really hard and came up with a solution for us, working together, and we were able to hit all the key parameters that we wanted to hit. So it's one of the things we're most excited about right now. We think it's gonna help us keep the shelves full.
Have you tested life cycles at all with these reamers yet?
No.
So we're just getting into that now.
Okay.
That's the stage we're at. So the simple answer is no.
So if I got my D-walled, I just need to call you guys, get a little freaking WD, and go to work and see how long it'll last, right?
I mean, the wall. I mean, if you go with a McKeedy, you might get one more. You
just got to put it on slower speed, not high speed.
Yeah.
Nah, it's carbide, man. Run that thing hard.
Run it like you stole it. Yeah. And, to these guys' talking points, I've been around this industry for quite a while, and it is amazing how this industry is stuck in the past, where so many other industries are sprinting forward into the new age. You walk into a lot of these old plants, and there's still the old ladies and the old guys in the back, and they're looking at each one, and they're dropping it in a tray, and then they're looking at the next one, they're dropping it in a tray, and it is so inefficient. And that's kind of what is exciting about this, because I've actually seen a spark of light that someone is trying to go above and beyond. And, I'm going to scroll back up to Bry. He said, what issues are running into production? He says he had some issues ordering some 6 Creed brass. And I know this is one of those many things that you guys are trying to do to really push the envelope and get brass out there faster, because it seems like every time I call, you guys are like, oh shit, well, we're running next week, because you guys are selling the shit out of it, which is good, but this is going to definitely help with production. Can you guys see his question?
Yeah. So, there's a couple answers, and they're not all great. But the truth is, number one, we walked in this, we had no idea what the demand would be. And that's just the straight up honest answer. So part of it is that, a part of it is, Cole, you saw it. A huge part of this is, so the first part is how much to make when, right? because again, we're a slower production process, but we're far more accurate. And then, I mean, Cole, I'll ask you, how much brass did you see on our floor that's ready for final QC when you were here last week showing us the bus?
Hell, we couldn't even get through part of the freaking place because there was so much brass in there.
A few 100,000 pieces, right?
Mhm.
So this new QC machine is going to dramatically change, our lead times. Now, coupled with the fact that over the last few years, we've been able to increase our production and really our parts per minute is how we measure it, and drive our waste down. And our waste is, I mean, some of the things that we pull out of our or that we consider waste, other people I know think we're nuts. But, I look at, if there's a spot on our brass, I mean, you're buying what should be a premier product. And it's as much about the performance as it is about the feeling you get when you open that box to us. So I get what Bry's saying. He's absolutely right. And we really feel with doubling production this year, which we've done the last 3 years, but we're doubling production again this year, and then bringing this new quality control machine online. We think that our customers and potential customers are going to see a dramatic change in our lead times and the availability of our product.
Yeah, and that's another thing that a lot of people need to understand is, say you're running 6 Creed. I dealt with this production issue for a long time. Say you're running 6 Creed. At what point can you honestly say, okay, I need to pull off of it and go to 22 Creed, or you need to go to other? And it's kind of that balancing thing of, as a consumer, I've got to plan forward, of course, but trying to figure out as a, producer, when to cut that off to move to the next, because if you cut it off too soon, then you still don't have enough, or if you leave this one if you're not building this one yet. So it's all a toss-up game, and I think you guys are probably getting on that. So to kind of make it simpler for everybody that's listening, let's see.
Bri, give us a shot next time. Put a note in there what t-shirt size you wear, and I'll send you a t-shirt if you give us a try.
There you go. Let's see. How many rounds do you think you can produce in a month with the new machine?
Andrew,
is this production, or how many rounds can go through the QC machine?
I think both.
Okay.
250,000 a shift a month.
Per shift?
Shift is 10 hours.
10-hour shift. Yeah.
Yeah. So this will so what are you running right now?
10-hour shift.
No.
But what
now we're running 6.5 small, right?
Oh, yeah. Right now we're running 6.5 Creed, more small primer. Yep.
Yeah, we're running 6.5 small right now. We'll be off it, I think, at the end of this week, right, Andrew?
Yeah. We're supposed to be done tomorrow.
Then we're going to 22 Creed more.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, so as of right now, in a 10-hour shift, how many can you run and do? So he's saying 250,000.
We're running 250, but you saw the results are sitting on our floor.
Yeah, the issue isn't the production rate of the machines is there. It's fine. It's our problem is hand inspection and getting it out the door, or package to get out the door, I should say. And so that's where this machine really shines, is that it should outrun our production machines, and it should run around 30 parts a minute, plus maybe a little more depending on one of the stations. But yeah, because of that, it's literally off that machine. It's packaged, ready to go, and so it's going to be phenomenal. It's going to really, we're going to be able to catch back up. We're going to be able to keep our shelves stocked and keep customers happy.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys are going in the right direction for sure. So I guess I've got this question. Now, I know of 3 cartridges that are coming out. I can tell people if they pay me enough money to tell them what it is. See, all 3 of these guys are laughing, but no, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't. I'm not going to tell anybody, even though I have the brass at my house. It's okay. But so when you guys come out with a new cartridge, like you did with GT, like you did with, some of these others you're doing, what is like how the hell do you plan on, okay, I'm going to come up with this cartridge. What do you look for when you're going to develop that cartridge? Is it velocity? Is it like what goes into that thought process of doing it? You know, kind of like what the GT did. Is that too broad of a question, or do I need to simplify it?
No, I mean,
Well, I mean, I think in any case right now, it's consistency, right? Because the more consistent you are, and everything you do involved in shooting, the better your results are going to be. So what we want to do is make an incredibly consistent product.
Cole, are you asking how we choose what calibers we're going to come out with, or?
Right. So let's say, you know, you come out with there's a 6 Creed, there's everything else. Why come out with a 6 GT? And then what are, you know, the standardization's not there. So now you've got to come out with reamers, you got to come out with print diagrams, you've got to come out with all this stuff. So, you know, what's the thought process behind coming out with a new cartridge? Now I understand it's, you know, trying to get your ES and your SDs down. But, you know, there's other different things. Like one of the new cartridges you're doing is trying to push the envelope on a bullet or a cartridge design, but using something. People will understand when it comes out. But it's one of those things. Like, what do you guys go into when you're designing this and the process behind it?
I mean, so the first thing is, as far as like what calibers are we doing? So we actually kind of did go into this thing with a plan and a strategy, and you know, the simple thing to explain it is like, why aren't we doing Magnum calibers? Because right now we knew a family of calibers that we were going to go after in the infancy of our company, and we attacked it. And we knew we were going to go after the BR family, which led to Dasher, and then the GT happened to come with it. So part of it is, you know, what is the NRL PRS community? What are they asking for? It's a huge part of it. Then it's, can we do it? So we keep pushing, and we're following kind of a plan overall, and then we'll throw some things in there. And I keep going back to like the 22 Creedmoor, some oddballs that, quite honestly, we just like. They sound like fun. We want to shoot them. We're out in Utah right now, and we like to go over to Wyoming, and we love prairie dog hunting. If anybody hasn't done it, like to me, it's one of the best things you can do with your clothes on. So it's, you know, we look at stuff like that. We love what we do, and then it's on from there. I don't know if Tom or Andrew have any other insight, but it's.
I mean, I think the Dasher was 5,000 emails from Dasher shooters
in one day,
and then you know, the GT, when George came to us with the GT, I mean, everything about that case just made sense. You know, everything that Dasher does and feeds out of a standard mag and everything. So it made so much sense, and the design of the case was so sound and so good that I mean, that for us was a no-brainer.
Yeah, and I might be way off base here, but I've kind of got to ask this question. Now, you guys have been really based around the PRS shooting version of it, and I think we talked about this the other day when I was up there. But are you guys really going to start trying to push into the hunting design development of it too, or do you guys kind of have a path going down the precision side of it right now, and then maybe down the road you'll go kind of cross?
So our focus was on PRS and competition shooting, because honestly, it's the most discerning people that are shooting, right? If you're doing something right, you might hear about it. If you're doing something wrong, you're going to hear about it. So the idea is to you know, steel sharpens steel, right? I think that's what they say. You know, get in there with the guys who are going to help you really hone our process and our quality and our tolerances, and then, you know, then really hone in on the hunting community at some point. And you know, I don't think we're letting the cat out of the bag. Like, we will be doing that. Right now, it's, you know, little furry creatures that pop out of a hole and like to eat each other when they die. It's absolutely amazing. But there's some pretty what I think are pretty badass cartridges that we're going to be chasing later too.
Yeah, and I'm excited about a couple of them. I'm trying to order barrels right now because I got more info than the rest of you people listening, which I'm excited about. So.
I'll tell you an underrated one that we really haven't promoted at all, just because we did it for West Texas Ordnance, is that 7 saw. If you haven't looked at it, you should definitely check out West Texas Ordnance's website, and check out that case. I mean, it is a 7/8 on steroids. It's high BC bullets, above 7 mil high BC bullets in the mid 2700 range, wickedly accurate, and all out of a short action.
It'd be a great crossover caliber for sure.
Yeah,
to be able to shoot both, because there were a few guys back in the day shooting. I can't remember. There was a couple guys here from Utah shooting something in a 7. It was like a 7 micro or something like that. Thing hit like the freaking hammer of Thor with a 195, but it was a little teeny cartridge. It was crazy.
I mean, that stuff for some reason is exciting.
Yeah, and I mean, changing it. It's not the 30-06 anymore. It's not the old 270. It's not that. Well, then there's nothing wrong with those cartridges. Don't get me wrong, but taking something and actually, we talked about this. Trying to take a cartridge that isn't designed to do that and then doing it. The U.S. Army's been great for that for years, right, Jeff?
Yep.
It's like that cartridge was not designed to do that specific thing. You're not trying to push a 300 Win Mag to freaking 6,000 feet per second. It doesn't work. And then it comes back to bite them in the ass later. And that was a good. Yeah, we won't go there. But
great 220 grain round right there. Yep.
I still got some of those. I'm surprised I still have my teeth in an extractor.
Oh gosh, don't shoot them. Please don't shoot.
Hell, they shot awesome, dude. They shot stellar.
Yeah.
You just didn't want to be anywhere near behind the bolt when you pulled the trigger.
Yeah, or try and lift up that bolt.
Yeah, but that's the thing is innovation. Hornady's done a really, really good job at it with the 6.5 PRC, the 300 PRC. Neil and the team over there, Jason and everybody else at Hornady's done a phenomenal job. Not necessarily putting out new stuff, but marketing the products too. And that's kind of where I'd like to see Alpha go too, in my opinion, in my mind, is, pushing the envelope of that long range hunting game, because that's where so many people are going right now. The problem of it is we can get into the ethics part of it and, shooting different things, but that's cool. That's exciting to me. And I don't know about the listeners, but I think it's exciting to all of us. Is there anything else that we've missed, you guys, before we get out of here? I'm trying to read through my talking notes, but I'm making sure I didn't miss anything that you guys really wanted to point out.
I don't know if we can answer it. We'll try, but I know Jeff. I thought Jeff had a question about that Fury.
Oh, I was going to ask that offline.
No,
but yeah, we can ask it now if you want, though.
Go ahead.
Have you seen their brass?
I have. I've seen it from a case at SHOT Show.
Yeah. What do you think about that case design?
I'll be perfectly honest. I personally can't speak to it because I have only seen the outside. I've literally seen it through glass at SHOT Show.
Okay.
My understanding, though, it's a is it an aluminum case head with a brass body? If I'm correct,
with a steel case head.
Oh, steel case head. Okay. So yeah, that's the one weakness to a brass case, right? Is the soft material. Brass has to be soft because you have to seal to the chamber, and so that's the one where it could go bad. So they can hold those higher pressures because they have the harder case head where it's not supported by the chamber. And so I'm not sure of how their the adhesion process between the body to the head. Definitely have to have. I'm guessing it's some sort of chemical adhesive plus a mechanical lock in there. But it's interesting. It's cool.
Okay. Yeah. Just curious if you had any experience with it or anything like that outside of SHOT, if you'd been able to shoot it or anything like that. So.
Not yet, but we'd love to.
It's always fun to see new stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I've got a question from Richard. This was a while back, and I know you guys can get into mandrels. I've seen a lot of group messages and forum stuff, and understanding what a mandrel does for neck tension. what do you guys recommend? Let's kind of break this down for some of the newer people that are probably listening that don't necessarily understand neck tension and mandrels. Can you guys break that down a little bit for some of these people that don't maybe wouldn't understand it?
I mean, I think it's just to put it simply. Again, we get back to consistency, and when you run a mandrel through let's say you're running a bushing die, and you run a 2 thou smaller bushing die, you're assuming you're getting exactly 2 thou neck tension. Well, you don't know that unless you're using 2 10,000th pin gauges. But what the mandrel is going to do is you're going to run the mandrel through the inside of the case, and what that's going to do is make every single case and neck tension extremely consistent, and it's really key. And I don't know, Andrew. You can speak to this, if there's a difference between 1.5 thou or 2 thou, or if it's just more important that every single one of them is 2 thou and every single one of them is 1.5 thou. That's going to ensure that you get the same bullet release every single time. So, we feel strongly. Andrew and I've been working on it and playing with bushings and mandrels over the last few months.
Yeah, I think one of the key things, I would first say neck tension is probably the most important thing in reloading to keep consistent. For those who don't know neck tension in like engineering terms is an interference fit. And so what it's saying is that you have a diameter of something, you're pushing into something, right? So you're pushing this bullet into a smaller diameter tube, and you're looking at that difference in diameters. And so a lot of people, I think the common understanding of neck tension is through the OD of the brass. And what they really should be looking at is at the ID. They've always inferred the ID from the OD by wall thickness. But the problem is when you bushing size a piece of brass, if that brass is not consistent, you're pushing those inconsistencies onto the inside because you're controlling the OD. Whereas if you're using a mandrel, you're controlling the ID and you're controlling those inconsistencies and pushing them to the outside of the brass, which is less important. And so when you look at neck tension on that interference fit, you have that compression and hoop stress on that brass that's holding that bullet in. And when it releases, you want to make sure it's as consistent as possible of a release. And so if you have wall thickness variations where, you're getting a little more pressure at like the 3 o'clock position on the bullet than you are on the 9 o'clock position because that side's a little thicker than the other side and it's not going to expand out evenly, then you're going to have those problems. But that's why we really like mandreling, is because you can control that ID so well. And then also the way to check it and measure it, the most accurate measure of neck tension when it comes to interference fit is pin gauges. And so if you don't know what a pin gauge is, you can find them pretty easy online, but they're just extremely precise cylinders. And you can pin them by, you can get them in half thou increments. I think you can go even smaller, but they get pretty expensive. But you measure those IDs, and then you look at it and you say, okay, using what you consider like a 2 thou neck tension for a 6 mil will be a 0.241 ID because your bullet's 0.243 diameter, and so 2 thou neck tension would be the bullet diameter minus your internal diameter of the brass, and so you get a 2 thou neck tension. But yeah, we think the mandreling is essential for consistent reloading.
Okay, yeah. So I guess let me ask this, and I know I'm probably going to get asked, what have you seen in differences? Like you see differences in extreme spread and standard deviation, of course. When you do this, how far does it change when you start paying attention to stuff like that?
I think some of our, when we look at like the Dasher and the GT, what we've been working on most recently, that's the difference between, Dash is renowned for having a very low SD, being able to achieve low SDs. And what we've seen is that's where the difference between like going from like, a 6XD on a group of 5 down to like a 2 or a 3. I mean, it's not huge. Like you're not going to go from like 15 to 2. You need better reloading practices then. But when you're really refining the process and you're trying to get those, sub 5 SDs, mandrelling is proven to be the best way to do it. And not just on dash, but on all calibers. We were just, Tom was just talking to me about the 18 precision guys shooting the XC and having great results with that. But yeah, and I think mandrelling is trying to remember some of the other results off the top of my head. Tom, do you have any other? Can you remember any of the data from Hembry? Hembry was he started mandrelling in his group size. He already shoots incredibly well, but
yeah, and when you talk to a lot of the F class guys, and these guys, they're unreal. I mean, they'll shoot a string of 25, and their ESs and STs are unreal. And when you really talk to them and you ask them what they think the most important or one of the most important processes in reloading, it's mandrelling just kept coming up. So we focused a lot of attention on that, and it's something we've incorporated into our reloading, and we've seen better results by doing it. And it's a relatively inexpensive die. It's a relatively inexpensive piece of reloading equipment to add that's gonna most likely provide better results.
Where do you guys look for that? Where do you guys go buy the mandrels and everything, just so people can go check them out?
Go ahead, Richard.
I have no idea. I don't know what I can. I'm just going to leave this to Bob and Tom.
I missed the question.
So if they want to go look at mandrels and they want to understand it, where do they need to go look? And most importantly, how do they know which mandrel to even choose?
I can answer the choose part.
It's a little difficult right now. We're working on that. We're trying to make things very simple for reloaders. So we'll leave it at that.
I mean, I see Jorge just popped in. Like 21st Century, they've got great mandrels. We do have some of those.
The hard thing though is that they're all set sizes, and you can't pick your own size and dial it in. So maybe there's something that's coming that you can dial it in.
Ooh, sprinkles.
You can buy it with your Play-Doh.
I like Play-Doh. All right, we're tracking. So if you want to know more, you can always ask on the Long Range Addicts podcast. You can email us. Go follow these guys' social media, and learn some things about, because I've even learned some things last night, and I've been in the reloading and shooting. There's always something to learn. And if you think you've learned it all, there's always something that's going to come back and bite you in the ass, because you don't freaking know it all. And that's all there is to it. But I appreciate you all coming on. We've had a good discussion, and I think we can even build some more discussions off the side of this, when it comes to reloading and understanding different things. alphamunitions.com, go check out their website. They do have, quite a bit of stuff in stock. They've got the what is it? The Epstein didn't kill himself. You guys got that stuff out yet?
Not yet, but it's coming. Yeah, the hell of a caliber.
Yeah, that and the Clinton side. Those are both
hanging around.
Yeah. Just hanging around. Yeah. Those were both. They both cracked me up, but I'm like, shit. Well, when you go police your brass, you know which ones are yours, right?
We were just hoping people would leave them at the range, and people would walk around and find it and pick it up and be like, what the hell is this? So we're waiting for some packaging to come in. The Clinton side, I don't know if that one's going to make it to retail.
I kind of like you guys. I don't know if you should probably put that in, because I've heard people that piss them off end up dead. So you might want to be careful right there.
None of us are suicidal. We're all pretty happy with our lives, and you heard it here.
Yeah, they do not want to jump off bridges or swing from orifices.
We all carry about $6 around in our pocket, and if our wallet's still there, it probably wasn't a robbery.
Let me guess,
that-
not contemplating suicide right now either.
None of us.
We do have some interest from the military on that one though, so we'll keep it around.
You need to do a, yeah. Well, yeah. Let's not go down that road. But
We know lots of ideas. Just
Can you imagine leaving those all over the world?
we're literally, our next caliber is going to be the 308 Bernie. So you're going to buy 100 of them, and we're going to send you 26 of them. The rest we're going to give away to people who can't afford it.
oh hell, yeah. I can imagine them on the ground in Afghanistan. Who this Epstein guy is?
Who's Bernie?
Yeah. Phil Byrne. Oh well.
Oh.
That was a good shit. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys. I learned something. I'm gonna be sneaking up there and stealing brass out of your overflow buckets because I know there's nothing wrong with it. You guys are just too damn picky. But again, I appreciate you. I appreciate you, Jeff, for joining us. Again, if you got any questions, let us know. And have a good night, everybody.
Yeah. Hey, Cole, thanks so much for having us. And anybody that has questions or whatnot, just feel free to reach out to us. We're always available.
Yeah, thanks again, Cole.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Cole.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Don't be afraid to pipe up. Send us your questions or topics and we'll cover them on the show. Thanks for listening.